Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sonali Bustamante Wilson, and I'm your moderator for this event. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Forum for candidates running for the office of Judge of the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court. This forum is being held in person and live streamed. It will also be recorded and available for viewing on the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland YouTube channel, accessible from its website. The League's co-sponsors tonight are the Greater Cleveland Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, of which I'm a member, and the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance. We thank the Cuyahoga County Public Library Parma Heights branch for providing facilities for this event. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization which does not support particular candidates or political parties. The League does, however, offer voter education like this forum and takes positions on issues of importance to voters where they are consistent with the League's mission. Our two candidates this evening are Kevin J. Kelly and Antonio S. Nicholson. Both are running for a 6-year term in the General Division of the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas commencing January 1, 2025. The judges of the General Division of Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas handle felony cases, civil stalking protection orders, and civil lawsuits that involve more than $15,000. The General Division also hears appeals from some of the administrative agencies. Before we begin tonight's forum, let me explain our format. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements by the candidates in alphabetical order. We will then ask questions for both candidates to answer. Each candidate will have 1 minute, and we have a timekeeper here, to answer each question. We rotate which candidate answers each question first. We anticipate that this portion of the forum will be a half an hour. At the end, each candidate will make a 2-minute closing statement. We ask that those here in our audience maintain a peaceful silence and avoid expressions of support or opposition to any candidate during this forum. I will now turn it over to candidate Kelly for an opening statement.
Thank you very much for everybody who is here tonight and everybody who is watching. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and all of our sponsors for making this possible. My name is Kevin Kelly. I am currently serving as Judge of Court of Common Pleas General Division. The people of Cuyahoga County were kind enough to elect me 2 years ago to fill the unexpired term of Judge Joseph Russo, who unfortunately passed away while in office. And for those reasons, it was just a continuation of that term, and now I'm running for the full 6-year term in the same position. Prior to being a judge of the Court of Common Pleas, I was an attorney for 18 years. I worked at the firm of Porter Wright Morrison Arthur, doing mostly civil litigation. At the same time, for most of that, not all of it, but 16 years of overlap, I was a member of Cleveland City Council, the 8 of which I was the president of Cleveland City Council, during which time I have many accomplishments that I feel very strongly about, but I'm most proud of the Right to Counsel program that I had initiated and shepherded through Cleveland City Council, working with legal aid and other partners to make it so that people facing eviction and the people who are facing housing-related issues, the tenants and the people that couldn't afford attorneys, would have an opportunity to be represented by an attorney. Before I was a lawyer, I was a social worker for 15 years. I worked in adult mental health and substance abuse, most recently at Recovery Resources. And my 30-second timer went up, so let me also say the most important thing is I am a husband and I'm a father of 5 beautiful daughters, and I'm happy to be with you all tonight and looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Nicholson.
Thank you. My name is Antonio Nicholson, and I'm running for judge of the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. I'm running for judge because I'm qualified to do so. I have about over 10 years of direct trial experience. I've tried everything from minor misdemeanor traffic cases to felonies at a 1st and 2nd degree. Throughout that trial experience, throughout that 10 years of experience, I was a former assistant Cuyahoga County public defender. I represented people who could not afford counsel. While a public defender in Cuyahoga County, I was the lead attorney for the Cleveland Drug Court. In the Cleveland Drug Court, I represented people who were charged with crimes based on their substance abuse addiction, mental health issues, and sometimes I represented people who suffered traumatic experiences such as sex abuse and trafficking, okay? I'm currently an assistant Lake County public defender where I try felony cases, felonies from the first and second degree. I've handled cases in municipal court, county court, appellate court, and federal courts. I've also helped people save their houses. I practice in foreclosure courts as well. So a little bit about me. I graduated from Solon High School, was third in the state, wrestled for Tony DiGiovanni, graduated from Cleveland State University. On both teams, I was a team captain. I was a leader. I got my first push from Judge Larry Jones. He gave me an internship in law school, and he was one of the reasons why I got hired at the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office. Now, my work in the community, I've been a wrestling coach for 20 years, over 20 years. I've coached everyone from 4 years old to high school. I've coached state champions, I've coached state place winners, and state qualifiers. I'm in this community. So again, I was a former public defender in Cuyahoga County, and I'm assistant public defender in Lake County. I have experience. And in the federal forum, I've handled cases that are deemed complex. Those are cases where there's about 30 plus co-defendants. I am experienced. Thank you.
Thank you both for those statements. Candidate Kelly, I will ask you our first question. A judge of the Common Pleas Court hears a wide variety of cases. What different types of cases have you handled? Where do you feel you have particular expertise? And where do you feel that you may still need to learn?
Let me go in reverse order. You should go into the job every day wanting to learn more. You should never believe that you know the job. Every day needs to be different. You need to understand it. As judge, I have handled cases, criminal cases from murder trials down to drug possessions, civil cases. We've had, you have more, there's more, while you have an equal number of cases, civil and criminal, you spend more time on criminal because civil cases are more likely to settle. And when they do settle, the process by which a settlement versus a plea change. But I've had multiple trials, both civil, criminal, numerous bond hearings, motion hearings. And in terms of like, where do I see my level of expertise? I am happy not being a generalist. Every day I remind myself that the lawyers that are trying the case know more about the subject matter law than I do, and that's the way it should be. My job is to allow them to try the case. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question for you. Okay, the judge on a Common Pleas Court hears a wide variety of cases. What different types of cases have you handled? Where do you feel you have particular expertise? And where do you feel you may still need to learn?
Well, as I said before, I've tried everything from minor misdemeanor traffic cases to cases of felonies of the first and second degree. That includes aggravated murder, rape, kidnapping, felonious assault. I've tried some very serious cases. In traffic court, I've tried DUIs, OVIs. In federal court, I haven't tried any federal court cases. However, because 97% of federal cases resolve. So I've handled federal cases. I've got about 6 or 7 under my belt. And every federal case I have handled has been very, very serious, complex, conspiracy cases. I've also handled civil cases as well. I've handled civil cases on the federal docket, civil rights cases. I've also handled foreclosure defense cases where I help people save their homes. I've also handled custody cases. So my experience ranges from, again, municipal, county, appellate, and federal. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll ask you, Candidate Nicholson, because we're going in reverse order. Describe a case you handled of which you were particularly proud and explain why.
Thank you. There was one particular case I handled in drug court. When I was a lead attorney in drug court, there was a young lady who had been using heroin for years. She had caught an OVI, and her mom actually said, tell me she's dead because I'm sick of this. So I got my arms around her. I got her in the Greater Cleveland Drug Court program. She sat in jail for 39 days. I saw her every single day for 39 days. And it was made for her to sit in jail because 4 of her friends overdosed from her drug dealer while she was in jail. I thank God to this day that she sat in jail because now she worked the program. That woman is clean. She's been clean for about 10 years, for as long as I've been an attorney. She's got a baby now. That is the biggest experience. That's the best experience that I've ever had because it teaches me that no matter what people do, no matter where they come from, they can be redeemed and they can turn into very productive citizens, mothers, and quite frankly, great people.
Thank you. Candidate Kelly, describe a case of which you are particularly proud and explain why.
Thank you. As a lawyer, the 2 cases I'm most proud of are when I was practicing law, the ability to get 2 gubernatorial pardons for low-level drug offenders. And I got one from a Democrat and one from a Republican. And this was back in the time they've liberalized the criteria somewhat. But at the time, one of the clients was a lunch lady at one of the Catholic schools, and the diocese just did a background sweep. And she was kind of humiliated having to leave her lunch lady job for this. And because she had another offense at the time, she was not able to have her record sealed or expunged. So I, at the time, I went to the governor and I went through the process, and I was the attorney of record for 2 cases for low-level drug offenders whose employment and futures were being held back because of that.
Okay, Candidate Kelly, since we're reversing order, the roles of a practicing attorney and of a judge are very different. What has been, or what do you anticipate will be, and I think it's what has been, the greatest challenge in transitioning from the role of an advocate to that of a judge?
Thank you. That certainly was an adjustment. When you are practicing law, your job is to know more about the case than anybody in the courtroom. And you have to go in thinking that and preparing like that and trying your case. And when I was first elected, I had like that, I want to know as much about every case. And I was quickly told, like, no, you don't need to know. You don't need to see the police report. These are things that the lawyers need to present. So being able to take a step back and understand that my job isn't to advocate. My job is to let the lawyers advocate. My job is to provide a forum by which the people that are representing those parties are able to present their case in a way that achieves a just result. But you have to take your hands off the wheel and not believe that you should advocate for one side or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Nicholson, the roles of a practicing attorney and a judge are very different. What do you anticipate will be the greatest challenge in transitioning from the role of advocate to that of judge?
Well, I won't really call it a challenge. I'll call it an adjustment. Because as a criminal defense attorney, I'm dedicated to my client, the constitutional rights of my client. I can't consider the victim. I can't consider other people. I am hired, I swore an oath to take care of my client. So as a criminal defense attorney, I represent the interests of my client. But making the adjustment to being a judge, you get the chance to consider both sides. You have to consider both sides. You have to be impartial. So I don't call it a challenge. I call it an adjustment. And I've been prepared for that adjustment because through practice, you get to see things from both sides' point of view. I get all the discovery. I get to see it from my client's point of view. And you also get to see things from the victim's point of view. And as a judge, I think I'll slide in nice and adjust well because now I'm not bound by one side or another. I have to be impartial. I have to protect the interests of the defendant, and I have to protect the interests of the client.
Thank you. Again, Candidate Nicholson, what qualities have most impressed you in the judges that you have known or before whom you have appeared, and do you feel that you possess these qualities?
Well, the qualities that have most impressed me, I've been in courts all over the state of Ohio and in federal courts. And taking off from those courts, it's the work ethic, the hard work. I'm impressed with judges who are not afraid to put the work in. I'm also impressed with judges who lean on their probation department. I'm talking about criminal cases because when you have a criminal case and you have to impose a sentence, it's a wonderful tool to have a great probation department you can lean on that will give you the background. Because as Judge Kelly said, as a judge, you don't always get all the details before a plea or before a trial. You don't get those details until probably a trial or sentencing. So I am most impressed with judges who are not afraid to do the grunt work. to get in the trenches, to actually spend time looking at pre-sentence investigations, reports, and learning about the people who are in front of them. So I think, again, I'll be repetitive, but the most impressive thing to me is judges who are not afraid to put in the work and not only focus on the what, but the why.
Thank you. Candidate Kelly, what qualities have most impressed you in terms of judges you've known or before whom you may have appeared? And do you think you possess any of those qualities?
So let me start by saying that there is a tremendous amount of talent on the Cuyahoga County bench. My colleague judges have been tremendous when I was first elected in terms of if there were questions I needed, having me sit through their trials and telling me what was going on. So I have on speed dial about 10 of the 34 if I have a quick question. And I look for a judge that is wanting to help his or her colleagues out. But in terms of how do you deal with those that practice before you, how do you treat the lawyers, how do you treat the court staff, the deputies, how do you treat law enforcement that need warrants signed? You just have to be, I appreciate judges that want to do the whole job, that want to work hard and want to just be fair to everybody. You have to have limits, but you have to be flexible within those limits. And whether I am not that, you'll have to ask them, but I hope so.
Thank you. Now, Candidate Kelly, are there aspects of the Common Pleas Court that you think the public may not be aware of? And what would you want the public to know?
Well, I suspect there's a lot that the public is not aware of. And what I'd like them to know is that the court has a lot of resources that are not available to the general public. We are in the midst of a national mental health crisis and substance abuse crisis. Most people can't just pick up the phone and receive services. But if you're on probation, we do have resources for you. If you're involved with the court, we can link you up to those services and we can get you the help that you need a lot faster than if you did not have that. So while I'm sure that they do not want to be in the system, but for those that are in the system, we do have resources that we can offer to people so that whatever time they appear in court, that'll be their last time involved in the criminal justice system. And I think the general public I would like it if the general public would know the full breadth of services and the things that we do to try to serve the people of Cuyahoga County.
Thank you. Candidate Nicholson, are there any aspects of the Common Pleas Court that you feel the public may not be aware of, and what would you want them to know?
Yeah, how people are being sentenced, the details of the sentence, and the people who are being sentenced, whether they be the race of the people who are being sentenced, the gender, nationality, all that. And I think there's a thing called the sentencing database that is working to get that information out to the public. Because you know what? People who elect our judges, our great judges on the bench, they should be aware of these characteristics and these details and how people of various races and gender and all things of that nature being sentenced. They should be aware of the statistics. And I think that's one thing that the public's not aware about. I would love to see the disparity of different social groups being sentenced, whether that be probation or whether that be incarceration. And I think people would like to know the disparity of juveniles, the different groups of juveniles who are being incarcerated in a detention center and who are being sent to treatment centers.
Thank you. Now, Candidate Nicholson, what do you perceive to be the greatest obstacle to justice in the Common Pleas Court, if any?
The biggest obstacle is that people don't trust the judges. I'm sorry, I just have to say it. I represent a lot of people in criminal defense, and they do not trust a lot of the judges. And I think that may be not being aware, misinformation, things of that nature. So what we have to do is that obstacle has to be lifted, because courtrooms should not be obstacles to justice. They should be pillars of justice. People shouldn't be nervous when they go to court. People should be secure in knowing that they're going to be treated fair. They're going to be treated equal. They're going to be treated with respect. And I'm just going to be real with you. Some of the courtrooms, you don't get that. And I will say it. So that is the biggest obstacle that I think that exists. People do not have a lot of confidence in the legal system. And I believe if we get people like me up there, they can have that confidence. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be equal.
Thank you. Candidate Kelly, what do you perceive to be the greatest obstacle to justice in the Common Pleas Court, if any?
I'm going to try to squeeze two into my 1 minute. The first is on the criminal side. I grew up in a time when people said there were too many lawyers. We need more lawyers on the assigned list that are taking the assigned cases, and we need more lawyers that are trained to take mental health cases. We need to make sure that the next generation is filling those roles and that there are enough lawyers to spend the time with the clients that the cases deserve. So I think we need more lawyers that are practicing in this area. Second, on the civil side, just as we provided right to counsel for those facing eviction, I believe that there needs to be more access to counsel for civil matters. All too often, just as tenants used to go to housing court unrepresented and things would inevitably not go their way, I sign default judgments all the time for people that get into credit problems that just don't answer because they don't believe they have the resources, the wherewithal to do so.
Thank you. Now I'm going to ask you the next question. What are your views as to whether the Common Pleas Court as a whole deals effectively with racial, ethnic, and gender bias?
So this is something that the court is not alone in its need to continue to move forward on this. We are trained on this matter. All judges are trained on this. It's something that the Supreme Court places value on, but it's something that you have to be cognizant. Every time you're involved in a sentencing of some, you've got to remember that people bring different backgrounds. Most people other than the lawyers don't want to be in court. They're not there voluntarily. And you have to think about what is it that brought that. Not everybody had the same advantages coming up. Not everybody reacts to situations the same way. It would be disingenuous for me to say that I have the answer, but all I can say is that it's something that we as a court need to constantly work on. We need to constantly be checking ourselves and training ourselves and making sure that we're always aware of any implicit bias we might bring to the job.
Thank you. Candidate Nicholson, what are your views as to whether the Common Pleas Court as a whole deals effectively with racial, ethnic, and gender bias?
Well, I will tell you this. For one, we need a more diverse bench, okay? We have 34 common pleas judges on the bench and 1 black male on the bench. That's a problem. So I think the first thing that we need to do to address those issues that you just presented to me is to get a more diverse bench. We have to have a more diverse bench. And like I just mentioned, there's a thing called this sentencing database. See, when you hear a judge giving a decision or a sentence, they're not going to go out there and say that they're racially biased or anything of that. And I'm not accusing them of that. But when you have the sentencing database doing the research of how many black people are being incarcerated as opposed to Caucasian, as opposed to Asian, as opposed to Latino, etc. If you have that information, then you can see whether there's racial discrimination, racial bias, gender bias, things of that nature. But I think we can't combat that problem until we get the research and the information. We have to be more informed.
Thank you. I'll ask you the next question. What have been the most effective ways to improve court procedures and efficiency, and what other methods would you suggest?
Well, I think the pandemic showed us that. It showed us, number one, courts can be efficient in using virtual court hearings, using Zoom, utilizing Zoom. What does that do? It decreases the amount of people in the lobby. I mean, some people that are sitting in the lobby waiting for their pretrial, they're sitting there for hours. And it's not the attorney's fault all the time. I know some attorneys, they got about 12 or 15 pretrials. I've had that before. So I think utilizing virtual software to conduct virtual hearings and not require people to come to court all the time can create efficiency. I think you also need a great court staff to create efficiency because if you don't have a good court staff, if you don't have a hardworking court staff, you can have cases and the docket get locked up. And we can't have that.
Thank you. Candidate Kelly, what have been the most effective ways to improve court procedures and efficiency, and what other methods would you suggest?
So I think you can start with each judge has to manage their own docket. I think it's important for all parties that there be trial date certainty, that people can, when you set dates, that parties can rely that those are going to be reasonably solid, but there's times when you're going to have to be flexible. I think that in terms of like what works, what is like health efficiencies, we've been, as everybody knows, the proliferation of cases involving mental health and substance abuse has been tremendous. I think that the development of the specialty dockets has been very important for court procedures. I know that in terms of what can we do in the future to make things more efficient, I know Judge Madej has started the domestic violence docket, and she is looking to expand that. I think we should look at expanding the domestic violence docket and the specialty dockets to make sure that we are able to respond to the unique challenges of each case.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the next question, Candidate Kelly. This is similar to the last question, but a little more pointed. What changes would you seek if reelected to the bench?
Let me just double down on what I just stated, that I believe that the expansion and use of our specialty dockets is something that I would seek. Another thing that I'm going to continue to work with is Mr. Nicholson had talked about the sentencing database, and indeed that's a good idea, but the reality is that the former Chief Justice was very strong on that. The current Chief Justice is not really, it's kind of been pushed to the side. But our administrative judge, Judge Brendan Sheehan, has an analytics committee, and we are looking at those things that the sentencing database was supposed to find out. And if I'm successfully reelected, I want to continue working on that so that we can keep our own internal data, even if the Supreme Court is not requiring or even encouraging us to do so.
Thank you. Candidate Nicholson, what changes would you seek, if any, if elected to the bench?
Well, first of all, if elected to the bench, I would work with organizations, community organizations, to have programs, to have resources, to have things, because you have to understand, people shouldn't have to get in trouble and be charged with crimes to get help. We should have resources and organizations and programs outside of the courthouse so that we can lower the crime rate, so that we can lower the recidivism rate. We can get our arms around people before they get the arms of the court around them. In addition to that, what I would do is I would do an in-custody treatment program. What does that do? That immediately identifies anyone who comes into the county jail. They can get treatment resources, because let's just be real. A lot of those people are getting out. So why don't we give them the resources and tools while they're in jail so that they can utilize those tools when they get out of jail, and it prevents them from coming back. That lowers the crime rate, that lowers the recidivism rate, and it does not clog up the jails.
Okay, thank you. I will ask you the next question, Candidate Nicholson. What do you consider the greatest issue the judiciary in Ohio faces today?
Again, we don't have enough programs. We can have all the specialty dockets in the world, drug court, mental health court, domestic violence, etc. But again, why do we have to have those programs in place for people who get in trouble? We need to have the same characteristics, the same resources, everything in those programs in the community. Because again, I'm going to be repetitive as the last question. If we have those programs in a community, that gives us a higher chance of putting our arms around the citizens, the people, before they get to court. Again, I'm going to be repetitive. We can't use the courthouse as the only means of giving people help. If we can have these organizations, have these resources, have these tools in the community for juveniles, we can prevent the juveniles from becoming adult criminals.
Thank you. Candidate Kelly, what do you consider the greatest issue the judiciary in Ohio faces today?
In general, resources. We need more resources for what people are facing. We need more lawyers that are trained to deal with the cases that are frequently in front of us. And we need to modernize the court so that it's more responsive to the special needs that defendants are presenting with. As I stated earlier, we are in the midst of a national mental health crisis. We're in the midst of a national substance abuse crisis. Are we doing what we can to consider that in in how we run the court. And do we have enough resources? Although I'm proud of what we do have and the great probation department that we have that utilizes the resources and hooks people up with the resources, there's just not enough. And we have to, have resources for people that, with substance abuse. We have to understand it's not a one-time shot. People often fail. Relapse is a part of it, and very few people defeat their substance abuse issue the first time out. So we just have to look at what resources are available and how are we utilizing them.
Okay, thank you. I will ask you the next question, Candidate Kelly. How do you maintain your impartiality and avoid undue influence in the performance of your judicial duties? And could you briefly discuss campaign contributions and the possible role of special interests in elections?
Sure. I've been running for office for a long time now, and the campaign limits for a judge are very low. And the bigger challenge is that people accuse judicial races of being name games, but it's kind of set up to do so because with the $650 limit, you can't run a countywide campaign with the amount of money that you're able to raise as a judicial candidate and get any kind of messaging out. It's just, mail's expensive, TV, radio's expensive. How do you avoid impartiality? The rules are set up so that, you don't touch the checks. You are not your own fundraiser. It would be disingenuous to say that I don't know who's contributing to me, but I'll tell you this, if anybody's listening, my integrity can't be bought for $650. It's not an amount that somebody's going to compromise themselves over.
Thank you. Candidate Nicholson, how would you maintain your impartiality and avoid undue influence in the performance of your judicial responsibilities, and also quickly discuss campaign contributions and the possible role of special interests in elections?
Well, experience. You have to be tough and you have to be firm. This is not a mayor race. This is not a Senate race. This is a judicial race. This is a judicial seat. You have to be impartial. You got to be strong. And I think people who are influenced by undue influence and all that, I think they're weak because to be a judge, you got to be strong. Okay, you got to be impartial. Now, let me get to the campaign contributions because they're not high. Just as Judge Kelly said, I'm sorry. I have to let people know if I wanted to make a lot of money or take a bag, I would stay right where I'm at in criminal defense. I'm taking a significant pay cut running for office. So I would not be bought. I will not be paid for. Donations and contributions are just what they are. Contributions and donations utilized to pay for resources to handle your campaign. Again, I'm taking a significant pay cut doing this, so I will not be bought.
Thank you. And Candidate Nicholson, I'll ask you the last question first. Do you think Ohioans are adequately educated about the role of judges? And do you have any suggestions about the ways that we might change how Ohioans select their judges?
No, I don't think they're adequately educated. And I think that's twofold. I think it's because they don't take the initiative to be educated. Some people, not all Ohioans. And I don't think I think we could do better educating Ohioans, particularly Cuyahoga County. Now, to combat that, to fix that, I challenge all citizens to do their research on the candidates. The information's out there. People can go on Facebook, they can go on TikTok, they can go on Instagram, they can post pictures. If you can do that, you can take 5 minutes to research the candidates because these candidates are, myself included, we're working hard. We are dedicated to you, to the people. And we can't vote based on slate cards and names anymore. That doesn't get the job done. So in order to fix that problem, take 5 minutes and research the candidates. Research the resumes of each candidate and put them against them. And then you will be able to see who is most qualified for the position.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Kelly, do you think Ohioans are adequately educated about the role of judges? And do you have any suggestions about the ways we might change how Ohioans select their judges?
So in reverse order, the answer is no. I believe that electing judges is an imperfect but the best system available. I do not want the governor appointing our judges. I know about the blended system some community or some states have. No, People being able to vote for judges is a right that you have. Do I believe that the citizens of the state of Ohio are adequately educated on judges and what they do? I would kind of double down on what Mr. Nicholson said and basically state the information's there. In this great important branch of government, this great part of our democracy, of our system of justice, the information is out there. And when people talk about the question of whether judges should be appointed, people don't know enough about them. I would ask anybody who's listening right now, quick quiz, don't raise your hand, name your state representative and your state senator. Most people can't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both of you. Candidate Nicholson, you can give a 2-minute closing statement.
In closing, I will say again, my name is Antonio Nicholson, and I'm running for judge at Court of Common Pleas in Cuyahoga County. I am experienced. Again, my experience ranges from 10 years of direct trial experience. Again, I'll repeat it. I've been in municipal courts. I've been in the county courts. I've been in the appellate courts, and I've been in the federal courts. I've been in foreclosure courts. I've tried custody cases. I've tried dog cases. I've tried property cases. So when people go to the polls in November, just be adequately informed. Again, I stress to everyone, please research the candidates and research their experience and their qualifications. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you'll come to an appropriate decision. But the thing is, I'm asking for someone's most sacred possession in the whole wide world, and that is their vote. I'm asking for your vote because I'm experienced, I'm qualified. I see cases through 150 lenses. I've been in so many courtrooms, and in addition to that, I've been involved in specialty court dockets. Again, I was a drug court attorney. I know when someone's battling an addiction, battling demons. I've been right there in the trenches with them. And as a judge, I can take that in consideration. I won't be learning on the fly. But it is the practice of law. So you learn all the time. You learn every day. I can tell you I have a ton of experience, but I learn something new every single day. And with my experience, I promise you, I guarantee you, I'm qualified to be your judge in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. I appreciate everyone listening to me. I appreciate to everyone that made this forum happen. And again, remember, Nicholson in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kelly, you have 2 minutes for a closing.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody for being here and those that are listening or might watch at some point in the future. I've been on the bench for not quite 2 years at this point, and it has really been the honor of my lifetime. A lot of the questions that were discussed tonight, I wish we had 30 minutes per question because it's hard to really get to the heart of these important issues with a 1-minute response because they are so important. But, oftentimes people look to the court for, to solve societal problems, to which we do our best, but, sometimes you have to make a decision in a sentencing hearing that's going to be 20 to 30 minutes. But in that 20 to 30 minutes with the facts you have, you can't fix what happened from birth through whenever they appear from you. If we failed somebody as a society, it didn't happen in the court. We have resources to try to be like that last effort to help them. And we all 34 of us strive very hard to use every resource we have to give people hope, to give people another chance. But I think we as a community need to start birth through 12. Let's look at, how do our policies that come out of the state municipal level, how are we educating our kids? What are we all doing together so that the court has less of these tragedies to deal with? Why so that we don't have to be sentencing children who murder children or people that commit these crimes when they're so young because we failed them from birth until whatever age they come to the court. It has been an honor. I'm not here to tell you that I know the answers to all these things, but I can assure you that I work hard every day. I can assure you I remind myself before I step out on the bench that there is nothing routine. Every time I step out on the bench, I remind myself it is the most important day in the life of the parties that are before me. I treat the job as such. I treat the court staff as such. I treat the lawyers as such. And I would greatly appreciate your support in November. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts on serving the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court General Division. Thanks again to the League's co-sponsors, the Greater Cleveland Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, and the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance. The video of tonight's forum will be posted on the League of Women Voters Greater Cleveland website, and I will not I'll read it, LWV Greater Cleveland, all one word, .org. For more information on other races that will be on your ballot in November, please visit vote411.org, the League's nonpartisan voter guide. Vote 411 is a one-stop shop for election-related information. It provides nonpartisan information, including local and statewide issues, candidates, polling locations, election dates and hours, early voting options, and ID requirements. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Thank you.